Y'all were not supposed to see that. Hello, my name is Breezy. This is Dark Academia for Insomniacs. If you are a fellow Insomniac like me, we welcome you. If you're a fellow Dark Academiac like me, we welcome you. I say we, I mean I welcome you. I don't know why I'm doing that. Um, but did y'all enjoy that last episode? I'm pretty sure y'all did. The Black Death. No, you can't talk about Dark Academia without talking about the Black Death. I could be wrong, but prove me wrong on that one. Um, Today is November 12th, 2025. This is a pre-recorded episode, just a heads up. Um, if you're new here, hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe. Um, so today we're going to be talking about supernatural fiction. I don't know about y'all, but I love the supernatural. I'm a big believer in it. You cannot convince me otherwise. So I love shows like Supernatural, The Vampire Diaries, the originals, and I was so disappointed with the legacies. I will not lie to y'all on that one. They had the potential to go far with that, but they had to make it appeal to children. Like, I'll be honest with y'all, shows like The Legacies, The Legend of Korra, do not appeal to children like they appeal to the adults who are watching them, for crying out loud. I don't think people realize that. Anyway, I get that producers are trying to make them appeal to a younger generation. Don't fix what ain't broke. I'm just saying. With that being said, let's talk about some supernatural fiction. Now that I got my little rant and tangent out of the way, y'all are probably thinking this girl has done lost her mind. Well, you wouldn't be wrong, but um, today we are going to be talking about supernatural fiction, as I have said. You probably have a drinking game on this by now, and I don't blame you. Now should I do the millennial pause just to add the extra dramatic effect? I think I will. Okay, what is supernatural fiction? Well, it is a subgenre of the speculative fiction that exploits and centers on supernatural themes, many often contradicting the naturalist assumption of the real world. Um, so in the broadest definition, it is basically fiction. Supernatural fiction overlaps with examples of weird fiction, horror fiction, vampire literature, ghost literature, and fantasy, where elements of supernatural fiction can be found in writing from genres of science fiction amongst the academics, readers, and collectors. However, supernatural fiction is often classed as a discrete and definite and defined by elimination of horror, fantasy, and elements of import of to other genres. Um, the one supernatural fiction that appears to embrace its entirety and the traditional ghost story. Now, the fantasy and supernatural fiction genre often overlaps, may be confused for each other. Now, there exist there exists some crucial differences between the two genres. Fantasy usually takes place in another world, whereas where fantastical writers are magic or normal. Now, in supernatural fiction, magic and monsters are not the norm, and the mysteries of such things is usually closely intertwined in the plot. Now, the supernatural genre highlights the supernatural creatures um, or happenings within the real world. Moreover, supernatural fiction also tends to focus on the suspense and mystery, excuse me, and less on the actions and adventure. Whereas the occult detective fiction combines the tropes of the supernatural fiction with those of the detective fiction. And supernatural fiction and the drama has supernatural elements um, blended into a story about the characters. Internal conflict or dramatic conflicts between the protagonist human or supernatural world, and society has between the groups as well. Now let's talk about the origin. because we can't do this without talking about the origin, right? All I'm doing is I really like, even though you can't really comment because people have yet to learn their lesson on how to be nice and be a decent human being. Um, I'm just curious, what is your favorite supernatural work? It could be a movie, TV show, book. Um, I am curious see where you fall on that one. Okay, here we go. Now, the author of the author of the rise of supernatural fiction states that the origins of supernatural fiction comes from Britain in the second half of the 18th century. And accounts of Cock Lane ghosts were featured in newspapers like in 1762, and an interest in spiritualism were also currently prevalent. There was a need for people to see real ghosts and experience them vicariously through the writings of fiction. A great example of this will be S. L. Vernado argues that haunted presence, the numerous in Gothic fiction, may, in the beginning, is an interest in supernatural comes from humanity's craving for the experience of the divine and even the old mythological tales of the Knights of the King Arthur, which gives the readers a sense of the presence of holy things. Now, the author does go on to trace the influence further into the future of Gothic literature movement. And I do have an episode recorded for Gothic literature just for y'all coming up, especially specifically Irish Gothic. Um, now, the famous horror writer, my favorite author, H.P. Lovecraft, cites man's fear of the unknown as the origin of supernatural fiction in his essay, Supernatural Horror in Literature. Now, he also goes on to describe the literary genre's roots in Gothic literature and in the description of Wuthering Heights in 1847 of natural surroundings. Um, in which the novel takes place in the eerie mood and it evokes, as cited, one of the first instances of supernatural horror being evoked in literature. And in the 20th century, supernatural fiction becomes associated with psychological fiction. Indeed, in the association, descriptions of the events that occur are not explained through the lenses of the natural world, leading to the conclusion that supernatural is the only possible explanation for what is being described. Now, a classic example of the world would be The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which offers both a supernatural and psychological interpretation of the events in this example. Ambiguity adds to the effects of the supernatural to be on psychological. Now, a similar example is Charlotte Perkins Gilman's story, The Yellow Wallpaper. I love that short story. I can't help it. Um, I'm weird. Just say it. You guys, we all know I'm weird. But anyway, now in film, supernatural in film genre it comprises the themes related to gods, goddesses, ghosts, apparition spirits, miracles, and other extraordinary phenomena. And these themes are often blended with other film genres such as comedy, science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And historically, the primary goal of the supernatural films was not to terrify audiences, but to offer entertainment, often in whimsical or romantic contexts. Um, Now, the genre is part of several hybrid genres, including supernatural comedy films and supernatural horror films, supernatural religious films, and supernatural thriller films. And as far in supernatural internet fiction goes, that supernatural beings have been a common part of the internet creepypastas and urban legends, as well as supernaturals internet characters such as Slender Man, um, which which is a tall, faceless being associated with the forest, which You guys can go check out my Down the Rabbit Hole for my urban legend stuff that I like to do. Now, another well known internet urban legend is the backrooms in the endless liminal space of the moist carpet, humming fluorescent lights, and the monotone yellow wallpaper. Now, the backrooms are commonly depicted as being inhabited by supernatural monsters known as entities. Okay, that is it for this episode. I will be seeing y'all later as we talk about Irish Gothic literature. Y'all have a great day and a happy Thanksgiving if this episode does not come out before Thanksgiving. It will be out before Christmas, though. Y'all have a great day.